The soil never lies. People lie. Ledgers lie. Even the grapes can be deceptive, swelling with water to hide a lack of sugar, masquerading as a bumper crop when they are essentially flavored water. But the dirt is a historical record of every trauma the land has endured for the last 10,000 years. It remembers the floods, the fires, and the neglect. I knelt between the rows of Cabernet Sauvignon vines in Block 4, ignoring the Napa Valley sunset that was currently turning the sky a tourist-friendly shade of violet. I wasn't looking at the view. I was looking at the leaves. They were curling at the edges, a microscopic yellowing known as chlorosis that signaled distress deep in the root system. It was a cry for help that only a few people knew how to hear. I crumbled a clod of earth between my fingers. It was too dense, compacted. The cation exchange capacity, the ability of the soil to hold essential nutrients, was off. I could taste the metallic tang of imbalance just by breathing the dust kicked up by my boots. The microbial activity was low. The earth was sleeping when it should be feeding. My name is Lucian Baker. I'm 29 years old, and I am expensive. Vineyards don't hire me when things are going well. They don't fly me in from Argentina or Bordeaux to tell them their terroir is excellent. They hire me when the wine starts tasting like vinegar, or when the vines stop producing, or when they are desperate. Morales' estate was desperate. I stood up, dusting the loam from my jeans. I checked my tablet. The contract was for a yield consultation. That was code. In this valley, where image was everything and weakness was blood in the water, yield consultation meant fix this before the bank notices we're insolvent. I walked toward the main house. It was a Spanish-style hacienda, white stucco and terracotta tiles, screaming old money and tradition. It looked impenetrable, a fortress of heritage built to withstand the trends of the modern world. But I knew better. Roots can rot from the inside out long before the trunk falls. A black SUV was parked in the circular drive, a Vance Global corporate car. Sharks were already circling. That meant the smell of blood was already in the air. I adjusted my hat, pulling the brim down to shield my eyes from the dying sun. I wasn't here for the politics. I wasn't here for the wine tasting. I was here for the plants. Plants were logical. They had inputs and outputs. People were variables I tried to avoid. The front door opened before I could knock. Camila Morales stood there. I had seen her photo in the trade magazines. The heiress of the valley. The woman who inherited the crown. The photos usually showed her in a designer dress, holding a crystal glass, smiling that practiced, tight smile of someone who knows everyone is waiting for her to trip. They painted her as a socialite, a lucky daughter who had been handed a kingdom she didn't earn. In person, she looked heavier. Not physically, she was slender, elegant in a cream silk blouse and tailored trousers that probably cost more than my truck, but she carried the air around her like a lead weight. Her dark hair was pulled back so tightly it looked painful, revealing the sharp, aristocratic line of her jaw. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, and shadowed by sleeplessness. "Mr. Baker," she said. Her voice was low, a contralto that vibrated in the chest. She didn't offer a hand. She stood in the doorway like a sentry guarding a treasury that was already empty. "Ms. Morales, you're younger than I expected. The agency said you were a specialist, a veteran. The dirt is 4 billion years old," I said flatly. "I just read it. My age is irrelevant to the nitrogen levels in your soil." She blinked. It wasn't the response she was used to. She was used to charm. She was used to sales pitches and men trying to impress her. "My assistant said you found something in the North Block," she said, stepping aside to let me in. The foyer was cool, smelling of beeswax and lilies. It felt like a museum, not a home. The silence was thick, the kind of silence that hides shouting. "Block 4 is dying," I said, not sugarcoating it. "The root systems are hypoxic. If we don't aerate and amend the soil within 10 days, you will lose the vintage. The vines are suffocating." She didn't gasp. She didn't argue. She just closed her eyes for a second, a brief flicker of pain crossing her face, and then the mask was back in place. It was a terrifying level of control. 10 days, she repeated. "Right before the harvest gala? Nature doesn't care about your party schedule." She opened her eyes. They were hard now. Flinty. "I know that, Mr. Baker. I grew up on this land. I know what nature does. I know it takes and it takes." She checked the hallway, ensuring we were alone. The house was quiet. Too quiet for a working winery during harvest. Follow me, she said. There's something else. Something not in the contract. She led me through the house, past the portraits of her ancestors who glared down at us with judgmental, oil-painted eyes, through the stainless steel fermentation hall where the workers watched us with guarded eyes, and toward the heavy, iron-bound doors of the cave system. The barrel room. She swiped a keycard. The doors hissed open. A blast of cold, humid air hit us 55 degrees, 70% humidity. The smell was overpowering. French oak, red wine, yeast, and the damp breath of the earth. She walked in. The lights were low, amber sconces casting long shadows against the rows of stacked barrels that stretched into the darkness. It was a cathedral of silence. She stopped in the center of the room. The acoustics were deadened by the wood and the stone walls. It was a vacuum. Mr. Baker, she said, turning to face me. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together to hide it. But I saw it. I saw the tremor. Ms. Morales? This isn't a tour, she whispered. I brought you down here because the acoustics are dampened. The limestone absorbs sound. She took a step closer, her eyes searching mine, looking for something: competence, loyalty, or maybe just a lack of judgment. We are 40 feet underground. This is the only place on the estate where no one can hear us. She took a deep breath. I don't just have a soil problem, she confessed, her voice cracking. I have a saboteur. And I think it's my brother-in-law. Beat 2. Setup, context, and sidecast. The silence of the cave pressed in on us. I shifted my weight, the sound of my boots on the gravel echoing slightly. Explain, I said. She walked to a barrel in the third row. It was marked Reserve Cabernet 2024, the pride of the fleet, the wine that was supposed to score 98 points and save the fiscal year. Open it, she said. I pulled the silicone bung from the top of the barrel. I took a thief, the glass pipette used for sampling, from the rack and dipped it in. I drew out a small amount of ruby liquid and released it into a tasting glass she handed me. I swirled it. The color was correct. Deep purple, edging on garnet, leggy on the glass. I smelled it. Blackberry, cedar, and something else. Something sharp. Volatile acidity. Acetic acid. I tasted it. I spit it out onto the gravel floor immediately. Vinegar. I wiped my mouth. It's turned. Acetobacter infection. It gets worse, she said. Try the next one. I tested 3 more barrels. All the same. Thousands of dollars of premium wine. Ruined. This isn't natural, I said, looking at the rows. Acetobacter spreads, but not this fast, and not across isolated lots. This was introduced. Someone spiked the barrels. Someone with access. My brother-in-law, Julian Thorne, runs the rival estate across the highway, she said, her voice bitter. He married my sister, and when she passed, he thought he would inherit this place. My father left it to me. Julian has never forgiven us. He thinks I'm incompetent. He thinks I'm a socialite playing farmer. She leaned against a barrel, the silk of her blouse contrasting with the rough wood. She looked small against the massive casks, burdened by the weight of the legacy she was trying to protect. He made an offer yesterday. Lowball. He said he heard rumors that my vintage was compromised. How could he know that? I haven't told anyone. Not even my cellar master. You suspect the cellar master? Pop? No. Pop held me when I scraped my knees at 5 years old. He loves this wine more than his own life. He would drink poison before he hurt the reserve. But Julian has spies. He has leverage. He has money. She looked at me. I hired you because you're an outsider. You have no stake in Napa politics. You just care about the dirt. You deal in facts. I care about the system, I corrected. A vineyard is a system. Can you fix it? The wine? No. It's salad dressing now. You have to dump it before the bacteria spreads to the air filtration system. If the volatile acidity gets into the HVAC, you lose the whole cellar. She flinched. Dump the reserve? That's half my operating budget. That's the loan payment. If you don't, you lose everything. But I can save the rest of the harvest. And I can find out how they got in. I can't pay you your full corporate rate for investigation work, she admitted, looking down at her expensive shoes. The bank has frozen my operating line of credit until the harvest audit. I'm liquidating my personal assets to keep the lights on. I sold my jewelry last week. I looked at her. A woman fighting a war on 3 fronts: nature, family, and finance. She was terrified, but she was standing straight. She wasn't asking for pity. She was asking for an ally. I don't need a corporate rate, I said. I need full access. Keys, logs, security feeds, and a place to sleep. The hotel in town is inefficient. Driving back and forth wastes daylight. There's a guest cottage, she said. It's small. It's near the creek. It used to be the caretaker's shed. It's fine. Why? She asked. Why help? You could just fix the soil and leave. You don't need this trouble. Because, I said, putting the bung back in the ruined barrel with a solid thump, I hate waste. Beat 3. Inciting incident. The collision. I moved into the cottage that night. It was simple, rustic, smelling of dry pine and old river stones. I laid out my gear: soil probes, a portable mass spectrometer, a drone with thermal imaging, and my laptop. My life was packed into 2 Pelican cases. I didn't need much. The next morning, the real work began. I started at the perimeter. I walked the fence line at dawn. The fog was heavy, clinging to the vines like wet wool. It muted the world, turning the vineyard into a grayscale landscape. I found the breach in Sector 4. The wire was cut low, hidden by brush. Footprints in the mud. Deep lugs. Men's boots. Size 11 approx. They headed straight for the water infrastructure. I tracked them. They led to the main irrigation pump house. I called Camila. Meet me at the north pump. Now. She arrived 10 minutes later in a beat-up Jeep Wrangler, wearing mud boots and a heavy canvas coat. She looked more comfortable in this than the silk. Her hair was loose, blowing in the cold morning wind. What is it? She asked, breath clouding in the cold air. Look at the injection port. I pointed to the fertilizer mixer. There was a residue around the seal. A white powder. Sulfur? She asked. Salt, I said. Sodium chloride. Rock salt. Industrial grade. She stared at it. Someone is salting your earth, Camila. They aren't just trying to ruin the vintage. They're trying to kill the land so nothing will ever grow here again. This is a scorched earth tactic. It's an act of war. She went white. She reached out and touched the pump, as if to comfort it. That's evil, she whispered. That's biblical. Who does that? Someone who wants to buy the land cheap, I said. If the vines die, the property value plummets. It becomes just a piece of real estate, not a winery. They want to pave it. She looked at me, panic rising in her eyes. Can we flush it? We have to flood the fields, I said. We need to run the irrigation 24/7 for 3 days to leach the salt below the root zone. But what? But that will dilute the sugars in the grapes. It will delay the harvest. You'll miss the crush window for the premium labels. You'll make wine, but it won't be reserve quality. It will be table wine. If I don't flush it, the vines die, she reasoned. If I do flush it, the wine is mediocre. Mediocre wine pays the bills, I said. Dead land pays nothing. She paced in the mud. She was weighing the survival of her heritage against the reputation of her brand. Do it, she said. Flush it. It will cost you the awards. The scores. I don't care about the scores, she shouted, her composure cracking. I care about the roots. My father planted these with his own hands in 1980. I will not let them die on my watch. I will not let Julian kill my father's work. She stopped, breathing hard. She looked at me, embarrassed by the outburst. I'm sorry, she said stiffly. I shouldn't yell. Don't be, I said. I stepped closer. I wanted to reach out, to steady her, but my hands were covered in mud. Anger is a useful energy source. Use it. You're fighting for survival. She looked at my dirty hands. Then she looked at my face. You really care about the plants, don't you? They don't lie, I said. They just grow. They deserve a chance. Lucian, she said. I froze. My first name. It sounded different when she said it. Grounded? Thank you. We have work to do. Beat 4. First obstacle. The resistance. The flooding began. The pumps roared to life. Millions of gallons of water poured onto the fields. It was a gamble. If it rained now, the crop would rot. We were fighting nature with nature. I spent the days testing soil salinity levels, running back and forth between the lab and the fields. Camila was right there with me. She wasn't directing from the office. She was digging trenches to divert runoff. She was sweating. She was bleeding. I saw the real Camila, the one who knew the name of every seasonal picker, the one who ate lunch sitting on the tailgate of a truck, sharing tacos with the crew. She wasn't an heiress playing dress-up. She was a farmer fighting for her farm. On Wednesday, Julian Thorne showed up. He drove a silver Porsche. He wore a linen suit that cost more than my education. He walked onto the crush pad like he was inspecting a property he already owned. "Camila!" he called out, his voice booming and fake friendly. "My God, look at this mess. You're flooding the place. Did a pipe burst? Is the infrastructure failing already? I told you maintenance was key." Camila stiffened. She was holding a refractometer. She looked at me. I gave her a subtle nod. "Stand your ground. We're managing a salinity spike," she said coolly. "Just a minor correction." Salinity? In this valley? Unheard of. Julian smiled, showing too many teeth. Unless, of course, the management has been negligent. You know, the offer still stands. I can take this headache off your hands. I have a team that can remediate this disaster. He looked at me. "And who is this? Another seasonal? You're burning cash on labor you don't need." "Consultant," I said, stepping forward. I crossed my arms. I didn't introduce myself. I just let my presence occupy the space between him and her. "Ah, expensive advice for a sinking ship." Julian turned back to Camila. "The bank knows, Cam. They know about the vinegar in the barrels. They know about the water. They're going to call the note on the 1st of the month. You have 5 days." "How do they know?" Camila asked, her voice deadly quiet. "This is a small valley. News travels." He stepped closer, invading her space. "Sell to me. Keep the house. Walk away with dignity before they foreclose." Camila didn't back down. "Get off my property, Julian, or I call the sheriff. Have it your way." "See you at the auction." He drove off, kicking up gravel. Camila stood there, watching the dust settle. She was trembling. "He knows," she whispered. "He knows about the vinegar. Only 2 people knew about that. You and me. And Pop." She turned to look at me. The trust we had built evaporated in a second. "Did you tell him?" she asked. "You're a consultant. Consultants talk. Did he pay you? Is this why you're helping? To get the inside track?" "I don't sell data," I said, my voice hard. "And I don't betray clients." "Then how does he know?" Pop wouldn't say a word. "Because there's a bug," I said. "Electronic, not biological. He knew about the vinegar, which means he heard us in the barrel room. The room where no one can hear us." I walked past her to the barrel room. "What are you doing?" she cried, chasing after me. "Hunting. Beat 5. Rising action. Domesticity and bonding." I swept the barrel room with an RF frequency detector I kept in my kit for securing corporate grow-ops. It took me an hour. I found it. A black plastic disc stuck to the underside of the main tasting table with gum. "Here," I said, handing it to her. She stared at it. "It looks cheap." "It's not passive," I explained, turning the device over. "It's an RF repeater with a burst transmitter. It records audio locally to an SD card, then fires a compressed data packet every hour to a receiver within a 2-mile radius. Probably a van parked on the ridge." "He was listening," she whispered. "In my sanctuary. He was listening to everything. Your financial calls, your fears. He used it to time his offer." She crushed the device in her hand. "I accused you. I'm sorry. Suspicion is a natural defense mechanism. It kept you safe." "Stop talking like a textbook, Lucian," she snapped, throwing the pieces on the floor. "I insulted your integrity. Be angry." "I'm not angry. I'm focused. We found the leak. Now we plug it, and we feed him bad data." That night, a storm rolled in. A real storm. Thunder rattled the windows of the cottage. The rain we didn't need was threatening to fall. There was a knock on my door. It was Camila. She was holding a bottle of wine, a 2018 vintage, one of the good ones, in 2 glasses. She was soaked. "I can't go back to the big house," she said. "It feels violated." He was listening. "Come in," I said. My cottage was small. 1 room, a kitchenette, a fireplace. I had a fire going to dry out my gear. She sat on the rug by the fire. She poured the wine. "To the soil," she said, raising her glass. "To the roots," I replied. We drank. The wine was silk and shadow. You live like a monk, she observed, looking at my sparse belongings. Don't you get lonely? Going from farm to farm? Never putting down roots? Plants are quiet company. They don't have agendas. People are noisy, she agreed. But sometimes you need noise. You need proof of life. She looked at me over the rim of her glass. The firelight danced on her skin. She looked softer, younger. The weight was lifting, just for a moment. You saved the North Block, she said. The new leaves are green. I checked before the sun went down. The flush worked. You saved me. I did my job. It's more than a job to you, she said. She put the glass down. She crawled across the rug until she was sitting next to me. You have dirt on your cheek, she said gently. She reached out and brushed her thumb across my jawline. Her skin was electric against mine. I saw her hand tremble slightly. I reached out and covered her hand with mine, stopping the shake. Camila, I warned quietly, I am your employee. You're the only man in this valley who hasn't lied to me, she whispered. And right now, I don't want to be the boss. I just want to be held. Just for a minute. Before the war starts again tomorrow, I looked at her. I saw the unworthiness complex fighting with her pride. She needed to feel safe. She needed a wall to lean on. I didn't kiss her. That would have been taking advantage. Instead, I shifted, opening my arm. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. She fit perfectly. The heart rate of a resting vine is 0, I murmured. Shut up with the science, she laughed softly into my shirt. We fell asleep like that, watching the fire die down, the storm raging outside but unable to touch us. Beat 6. Midpoint twist. The shift. The next 2 weeks were a battle. We harvested the grapes. The yield was lower, the sugar content slightly diluted, but the fruit was clean. We could make a good rosé or a light table red. It would sell. It would pay the interest. It wasn't the reserve, but it was survival. We were bottling the rescue blend when the sheriff arrived. He wasn't alone. He was with a health inspector holding a clipboard. Miss Morales, the sheriff said, looking uncomfortable. He knew her father. We received a tip about contamination. We handled the salinity, Camila said. It's clean. Look at the labs. Not salinity, the inspector said. Diethylene glycol, antifreeze, in the finishing tanks. That's insane, I said, stepping in. We test daily. The tanks are sealed. I sealed them myself. We need to test, the inspector said. They walked to the tanks, the ones ready for bottling, the ones that were supposed to save the company. The inspector ran a rapid test on the spigot. The strip turned bright red. Positive. I'm issuing an immediate stop work order, the inspector said, slapping a red sticker on the tank. This facility is quarantined pending a full investigation. No product leaves the premises. You are looking at criminal negligence charges. Camila collapsed onto a bench. She looked like she had been shot. It's over, she whispered. We can't sell. We can't pay the bank. Julian wins. I looked at the tank. The seal was intact. How? I muttered. How did he get it in? It doesn't matter, Camila said, tears streaming down her face. He won. He poisoned the well. She looked up at me. You have to leave. Lucian, if your name is attached to a poisoned winery, your career is dead. You're a consultant. Walk away. Save yourself. I'm firing you, she shouted. Get out. I won't drag you down with me. I don't take orders from people who are surrendering, I said coldly. I walked to the tank. I climbed the ladder. I looked at the access hatch. It was digitally locked. The log showed no entries. It's not in the tank, I said. The test was positive. The test was positive for the sample, I said. Where did he take the sample from? The spigot. I knelt by the spigot. I pulled out my pocket knife. I unscrewed the nozzle. Inside the nozzle, packed into the mesh filter, was a gelatin capsule. He didn't poison the wine, I said, holding up the goo. He poisoned the tap. The tank is clean. The sample was corrupted at the exit point. This is a contamination at the terminal point. Camila stared at it. Hope, fragile and terrifying, came back into her eyes. Can we prove it? We can prove the tank is clean. But we need to retest using a sterile sampling valve upstream before the manifold to clear the product. That takes time. The stop work order stands until the official state lab results come back. That takes 2 weeks. The bank calls the loan on Friday. We have 3 days. We can't sell the wine in 3 days if we can't bottle it. No, I said. We can't sell the wine. I looked at her. We have to sell the dirt? Beat 7. Second obstacle? Internal or external? Sell the land? She asked, horrified. No. We sell the future of the land. Futures contracts. We sell the 2025, 2026, and 2027 vintages now. To private collectors, we pre-sell the harvest based on the soil quality. Who would buy wine that doesn't exist from a winery under investigation for antifreeze? People who trust the soil, I said. And people who hate Julian Thorne. We create a coalition. We had 3 days to raise $2 million. We worked out of the cottage. The main house was too exposed, and the press had started to gather at the gates. The rumor mill was toxic. Poisoned wine is a brand killer. We called every contact in her father's Rolodex. We called my contacts restaurants, sommeliers in New York and London. Most said no. They were scared. By Thursday night, we had raised $500,000. It wasn't enough. Camila was sitting on my floor, surrounded by spreadsheets. She looked defeated. It's not enough, she said. We need a miracle. There is one more option, I said. The Harvest Gala. The auction. It's tomorrow. Julian will be there. He'll be gloating. He thinks I'm finished. Let him gloat. We're going to crash the auction. We're going to auction off the rescue blend not as wine, but as a symbol. And we're going to auction the truth. The truth? We're going to play the recording. What recording? The bug, I said. It had onboard storage. Crushing it didn't erase what it already sent or what it buffered. I recovered the last audio file. I played the file on my laptop. It was grainy, but clear. Julian's voice. Did you salt the pump, Rico? Good. If the water doesn't kill the vines, the glycol scare will kill the brand. Put the capsule in the spigot. I want that land cheap. I want her broken. Camila's hand flew to her mouth. You recovered this? I collect data, I said. Always. This is illegal. We can't use it in court. We aren't in court, I said. We're in the court of public opinion. We play this at the gala. We destroy his reputation. Then we ask the room who wants to invest in the winery that stood up to him. She looked at me. She looked terrified. It's a war, she said. Even if we win, the press will be a nightmare. We'll be fighting rumors for years. It's a harvest, I corrected. You reap what you sow. And sometimes, you have to burn the field to save the farm. Beat 8. Climax. Active choice. The Harvest Gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Silverado Resort. Everyone was there. The bankers, the critics, the tourists, and Julian Thorne, holding court at the center table. Camila and I walked in. She wore a red dress that looked like spilled wine. I wore my only suit, charcoal, severe, ill-fitting at the shoulders. I felt out of place, but I felt ready. The room went quiet. The poisoned princess had arrived. Julian smirked. He walked over. Camila, brave of you to show. Here to hand over the keys? Or are you selling the antique tractors? Here to make a toast, she said. She walked to the stage. She took the microphone. Welcome, she said. Her voice didn't shake. You've all heard the rumors. The wine is bad. The land is dead. The Morales name is finished. She signaled me. I stood at the AV board. I had convinced the sound guy to take a break with a $50 bill and a very intense stare. I plugged in my laptop. But in winemaking, Camila continued, truth is in the finish. And we have a very special finish for you tonight. I hit play. The audio boomed through the ballroom speakers. Did you salt the pump, Rico? Good. The glycol scare will kill the brand. I want her broken. The room gasped. It was a collective intake of breath. Julian dropped his glass. It shattered on the marble floor. That's a lie, he screamed. That's a deepfake. Camila didn't stop. That was the voice of Julian Thorne, conspiring to destroy a 100-year-old family business because he wanted a parking lot. She pointed to the screen. I projected the chemical analysis of the spigot versus the tank, showing the clear delineation of contamination. The wine is clean, she declared. The tank was sabotaged. We have the evidence. We have the chain of custody. She looked at the crowd. I am opening the bidding for the 2024 futures. The Victory Vintage. Who wants to drink the wine that survived the war? Who stands with Morales estate? The silence stretched for 3 seconds. It felt like an hour. Then, an old man in the back. A famous critic raised his paddle. 50,000 for a barrel. 60, someone else yelled. 100,000. The room erupted. It wasn't about the wine anymore. It was about the story. It was about justice. Julian tried to leave, but the sheriff who was providing security blocked his path. Mr. Thorne, the sheriff said, we need to talk about some chemical procurement logs I just received from Mr. Baker. I watched from the booth. I watched Camila command the room. She was radiant. She wasn't an heiress anymore. She was a queen. Beat 9. Falling action. Aftermath. We raised $3 million in an hour. The debt was covered. The operating capital was secured. But the victory wasn't without cost. The next morning, the press was camped at the gates. The investigation into the glycol was still ongoing, despite the evidence. And we had to make a hard choice. I stood with Camila in the barrel room. The reserve barrels, the vinegar ones, were still there. We have to dump them, I said. We can't keep them on site. The risk of cross-contamination is too high. I know, she said. We rolled them out to the drain. One by one, we uncorked them. The smell of vinegar filled the air. It was the smell of failure. It was the smell of loss. That's my father's work, she said, watching the red liquid flow into the grate. Gone. Not gone, I said, transformed. It's fertilizer now. It hurts. It should. We stood there, watching the last of it drain away. It was messy. It was painful. It wasn't a clean win. The press is calling me the vigilante vintner, she said, wiping her eyes. Trust grows slow, I said, like vines. She turned to me. She looked exhausted, stained with wine and grief, but her eyes were clear. You're staying, she said. My contract is up. I'm extending it. Indefinitely. I need a soil guardian. Is that a real title? It is now. And I can't pay you for a while. Not until the future's clear. I have conditions, I said. Name them. I want the cottage, permanently. And I want to plant a test block of Pinot Noir on the ridge. Pinot? In Cabernet country? You're crazy. It's cooler up there. The microclimate supports it. Fine, she smiled. Anything else? One more thing. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the bung from the first barrel we checked. The vinegar barrel. I had cleaned it. This stays on your desk, I said. To remember that sometimes things have to go bad before you can find the rot. Beat 10. Resolution. 6 months later. The spring bud break was early. The vines were waking up, pushing out bright green shoots against the black wood. I was in the north block, checking the soil moisture. Perfect. The salt was gone. The earth was healing. I heard a crunch of boots. Camila walked down the row. She was wearing work boots and jeans. She looked happy. The bank loan is cleared, she said, and Julian's lawyers are settling out of court. He's selling his vineyard to pay the legal fees. Are we buying it? We're thinking about it. She grinned. We need room for your Pinot. She handed me a glass of wine. It was from the tank we saved. The rescue blend. To the dirt, she said. To the roots, I replied. We drank. It was good. Balanced. Complex. It tasted like struggle and rain and victory. Hey, she said, looking around the empty vineyard. The tour guide is off duty. Is she? She wants to show you the barrel room again. Why? The acoustics haven't changed. She stepped closer, taking the glass from my hand and setting it on a fence post. Exactly, she whispered. No one can hear us. She pulled me down for a kiss that tasted like sunshine and survival. The end.